Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, and we're going to talk about a very unpleasant task Andrew Yang should take immediately, and the reason why he should take it. All right, so the task is Andrew Yang should be the first and only U.S. presidential primary candidate to step forward and restore Donald Trump's status as a president, as a U.S. president in good standing. And why should he do this? Well, the reason Andrew Yang should do this is he is the only U.S. presidential Democrat primary candidate who has the ability to show right now, by being noble and being honest and being true, that there is a huge problem in America about specifically about who gets credit for tasks that are not complete, and who does not get credit for tasks that are not complete, and who has to pay the consequences of not crossing their T's and dotting their I's. All right, so let's jump right into this and talk about this in very distinct, stark detail. Okay, all right. So let's talk about crossing T's and dotting I's. Okay, all right. So crossing T's and dotting I's, okay? Right now, Andrew Yang has a huge problem in Ohio because he didn't cross his T's and he didn't cross his I, and he didn't dot his I's, right? So basically, Andrew Yang's campaign, and he is responsible for what happens in that campaign, they got triple the amount of signatures necessary to get on the ballot in Ohio, but they did not submit the proper forms to make sure that they were all set, and that those signatures would drop into place and be accepted. They did not cross the T and dot the I, right? And you know what Andrew Yang's doing right now? He's not saying, oh, woe is me. He's like, hey, I have to pay for my consequences. I didn't cross my T. I didn't dot my I. I need to pay the consequences of not crossing my T's and dotting my I's. And so the Andrew Yang campaign is going to be a write-in in Ohio. Okay? Now let's talk about average Annie. There's 1,000 average Annies in America. All right? Now, what's an average Annie, right? Well, an average Annie is an American. This happens every year at April 15th. Average Annie is, the kind of person who wants to do the right thing, but just almost gets there and just doesn't cross the T, doesn't dot the I, right? Goes about her business and does everything necessary to file her taxes. Fills out all the forms, checks all the boxes, does all the math, puts all the papers in, seals the envelope, puts the stamp onto the envelope, but never goes to the post office and forgets. Does not file her taxes, right? You know what happens to average Annie? She goes to jail, right? Like, in America, they don't go close enough, right? Like, you have to pay for the consequences of your actions. If you don't cross your T's and dot your I's, you have to pay for the consequences of your actions, right? But guess who gets to bypass that? Establishment politicians, establishment media, and establishment candidates. And Andrew Yang has to be the only U.S. presidential primary candidate to say, I'm willing to pay the price for not crossing the T and not dotting the I, but I'm going to be darned if I'm going to sit here and watch while Nancy Pelosi says she's special and doesn't have to cross the T's and dot the I's. So let's talk about it, all right? Let's get into it, all right? Where's this happening? Well, first of all, Andrew Yang has to be the first person to say, hey, everybody, Harvard law professor Noah Feldman explained to everybody in this country, Donald Trump is not the third impeached president. Donald Trump is a president in good standing. He is not in any way impeached. Not in any way. And the reason why is Nancy Pelosi did not cross the T, did not dot the I. And Harvard law professor Noah Feldman spelled this out in incredible detail in a Bloomberg piece. He said, here's how you impeach somebody. You don't just take a House vote, Nancy Pelosi. That's a mime act. Oh, here we go. Here's some actions that look like an impeachment, but are not an impeachment, right? An impeachment is a House vote. The House sends articles to the Senate. The House sends managers to the Senate. The Senate then uses the House articles and the House managers to conduct a trial. That's an impeachment, right? Making a few motions that look like an impeachment aren't an impeachment. They're not. That's doing your taxes, put them in an envelope, putting the stamp on the envelope, and sitting it on your desk. That's not sending it. That's not filing your taxes. And guess what? Average Annie doesn't get credit for filing her taxes if she doesn't send them in, right? Andrew Yang does not get to be on the ballot because he's a nice guy. Average Annie doesn't get credit for filing her taxes because she's a nice lady. Nancy Pelosi doesn't get credit for impeaching Trump because she made motions that looked like an impeachment. And guess what? The Washington Post and the New York Times and 100 other establishment media sources don't get credit for accurately reporting the news if they didn't. Donald Trump is not an impeached president, right? And Andrew Yang says, listen, this is America. And I don't know what makes Nancy Pelosi special, but I, Andrew Yang, have to pay for the time when I didn't cross my T and dot my I, and Nancy Pelosi needs to do the same, right? She did not impeach Trump. And every traditional establishment news source out there needs to stop saying that she did. And she needs to stop saying that she did, right? If I, Andrew Yang, have to cross my T's and dot my I's, so does she, right? And also, all those very nice reporters, right, who are drinking their lattes and, doing their work wherever they need to do, they need to start actually reporting the news, right? So if T's and I's matter for me, Andrew Yang, and they matter for Average Annie, what's special about Nancy Pelosi that she gets away with not crossing her T's and dotting her I's? It's not fair. It's not right, right? So the reality is Harvard law professor Noah Feldman is 100% correct, right? What he published with Bloomberg, through Bloomberg news source is 100% correct. Donald Trump is not even remotely impeached. Andrew Yang should take the time to say, T's and I's matter. I'm paying the consequences for not crossing my T's and not dotting my I's. Average Annie has to pay her consequences when she doesn't file her taxes. And Nancy Pelosi needs to pay her consequences when she doesn't do the work that she is taking credit for. This is America. Who gets to take credit for uncrossed T's and dotted I's? What's special about Nancy Pelosi? Right? What's the attribute that allows this? I know it. Scott Gerber, I know what it is. Right? It can't be said. It's unspeakable. Right? But I think you know it too. It's a huge problem. Has to do with the first 42 presidents we had. Right? Exactly. And this is really, really, really becoming a massive problem. And we really need to start talking about this in detail. And this has really got to get started to get rolled back. So the reality is, I think Andrew Yang needs to say, hey, what the heck? People need to start. Everybody's got to cross the T and dot the I. And if anybody's taking credit for T's they didn't cross and I's they didn't dot, we need to start talking about what gives them that right. And if there's no legitimate reason, then they better start crossing their T's and dotting their I's and paying their consequences, just like Andrew Yang is paying his consequences right now and has done the right thing and agreed to do the legitimate action, which is a write-in. Why on earth should Nancy Pelosi be taking credit for something she didn't do? All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.